Hey everybody. I was asked yesterday if I've seen one of these new LED aquarium heaters that are supposed to be super efficient, and you can get the equivalent of a 100 watt heater for a mere 15 watts because of course LEDs are so super efficient. Now, that's true when it comes to making light. LEDs are really efficient at making light, and you can in fact get 100 watt equivalent of an incandescent bulb out of a 15 watt LED. But that doesn't translate into producing heat. You simply can't get 100 watts worth of heat out of 15 watts worth of electricity. And so I was kind of curious about their comment, and they claimed that they'd seen a Big Clive video where he actually broke one of these down. If you're not familiar with Big Clive, he breaks down any manner of electronic gizmo or gadget and tears it all apart and looks into how they're made and everything else. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, you should definitely check out Big Clive if you're not already familiar with him. And so I looked on his channel and I looked for anything to do with an LED heater, whether it was a space heater or aquarium heater, and I couldn't find anything. And I couldn't find anything anywhere. And I started looking around to see if there was any that were for sale, that I could see what their advertisement said. And I couldn't find anything there. All I could find for an LED heater was heaters that were traditional heaters, whether they were radiant heaters or aquarium heaters or whatever, didn't matter. They were still a traditional heat source. The LED was either an LED readout, LED display. Some of the space heaters had LED lights on them, so you could also use it as a room light. But I couldn't find anything anywhere that indicated you could get something that worked for an LED as the actual heat source. And so while I was looking around, I actually came across several threads in forums where people were also asking about these LED aquarium heaters and whether or not they were as efficient as they claimed or whatever. So I don't know if people are confusing these LED heaters with really thinking it's an LED that is the heat source, or what. Or maybe there's something out there that people are selling this sort of scam item saying, hey, you can get this super efficient LED heater, 15 watts will give you 100 watt equivalent worth of heat. And that's simply not true, and I'm going to go over that real quickly. And if anybody out there is interested in purchasing one of these things and you come across one, I want you to do two things. First of all, I want you to not buy it. And secondly, I want you to send me a link to it so I know what these things are, if they even exist, because I couldn't find anything. So heat is just another word for energy, and watts is a simple way of measuring that energy. So if you wanted to say this a different way, instead of saying 15 watts of energy will give you 100 watts worth of heat, if we simply use the word energy in both those scenarios, we say 15 watts of energy will give you 100 watts worth of energy. That doesn't make sense. If there was a device out there that you could put 15 watts in and get 100 watts out, I would buy it, and so would everybody else in the world, and that would solve the world's energy crisis, because that is a perpetual motion machine. It's a really, really great one. Most perpetual motion machine scams only claim to have a 1 or 2% net increase in energy, whereas this is going from a 15 watt input to a 100 watt output. That is ridiculously super duper efficient, and again would end all the world's energy crisis. You simply can't get more energy out of something that you put into it. So while an LED does make light very efficiently, and it's far more efficient than an incandescent bulb, it still doesn't produce heat any more efficiently than a simple electric resistance coil or a ceramic resistance coil or something like that. That's the most efficient way to do it. You back up the electricity and it's losses. It just gets lost as heat. So a space heater or an aquarium heater or something like that is actually something you want to be electrically really inefficient. You don't want the electricity to simply flow through it. You want the resistance to cause heat, and then that heat is then dissipated into the tank. With an LED, you're just not generating enough heat. LEDs do produce more heat than a lot of people give them credit for. A lot of people say LEDs don't produce any heat or very little heat. They do produce a fair amount of heat, but relative to an incandescent light bulb, they produce a lot more light to heat ratio. An incandescent bulb produces about 97% heat and about 3% light, where a good LED will give you about 45% light to about 50% heat losses. So you're 90% more efficient than, you know, a standard incandescent bulb, but it doesn't mean you're actually 90% efficient. You know, you're not putting 90% of that energy into light and only a little tiny bit of it being lost as heat. LEDs do lose heat, but nothing like an actual space heater would do. So I don't know of any way you could possibly use an LED to generate heat. That's what they're actually good for, is producing light without those losses in heat. And again, with the space heater, you kind of want those losses. The losses are what we're going for in the sake of a heater. And so why would you want to use something that's renowned for minimizing those losses? So again, there's just no such thing as a 15 watt input and a 100 watt output heater. It just doesn't work that way. So when it comes to aquarium heaters, if you need a 100 watt heater for your 15 or 20 gallon tank, then you need a 100 watt heater. 100 watts is 100 watts, and that's what you have to put in to get back out. So I hope that clarified that a little bit and didn't make that even more confusing than it already might have been for people. But trust me on this one, don't buy a heater that claims to give you 100 watts worth of heat for 15 watts worth of energy. It does not work that way. The best you're going to do is get 100 watts for 100 watts. And it may be even less efficient than that, but you're never going to get more out of something than you put into it. Again, that's a perpetual motion machine and would solve all the world's energy problems. And so nobody's invented that yet because it's a physical impossibility. So thanks for watching this one. Hope that cleared things up, like I said, and didn't make it even more confusing for anybody. Don't forget, this one here is my 125 gallon New World tank. Thanks for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.